I am so excited that you guys get to hear this morning from Doug Van Meter. I've been looking forward to this for quite a while. When we were talking about having Doug speak this morning, my heart was an immediate yes, because I've gotten to know him better and better over the time that he's been here and been a part of Destiny Life. And he's been such a source of strength and encouragement to Steph and I and to all the pastoral team here at Destiny Life. And today you just get to get a taste, a glimpse of that. And so I'm so thankful and honored to have Doug with us this morning. And I want to ask Jerry and Teresa Vaughn if they would come to the platform as well. And Jerry and Teresa, as many of you know, are the international directors of missions for ATI and Destiny Life. And if you don't know Jerry and Teresa Vaughn, it's because they've been a part of DLC and called it church home for, I don't even know how, 30 years. But until recently, they've only been able to be here on and off a couple of times a year because they travel so extensively all around the world. And you'll hear more about the width and breadth of all that you are a part of through them on February 16th at our Mission Summit. But I wanted to introduce them, and then they can continue to introduce Doug. So God bless you guys.
Good morning, everyone. This is a great day, isn't it? I'm excited about all that we're going to experience on both campuses today. Of course, this is a privilege for me to be able to introduce one of my dearest friends in the globe. And Proverbs 17:17 says this: a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. To understand that, I think the Message Bible makes it clear. It says, friends love through all kinds of weather, and families stick together in all kinds of trouble. I think that kind of describes Doug and Regina's relationship with Teresa and me over the years, is that we have just been connected by the Spirit for almost 30 years now, just what we would call a divine connection, divine friendship. And over a period of time, Doug will share some things, but as we connected with him, they began to send people to the mission field, and there came a time when over half of their congregation had made a mission trip with us in Venezuela or Guatemala or some other place in Latin America. So it's such a blessing to introduce him today and to welcome him. He's been a part of Destiny Life now for a couple of years, and that's another story how he got here. But let's welcome Doug Van Meter today, and he'll share with you a little bit about Regina, who passed away, went to be with the Lord some time back, and this is our friend, Doug Van Meter. Love you, bro.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. It's really an honor for me to be here and to have the time to thank everybody. I'd like to start by being grateful. At a very difficult time in my life, which I'm going to share part of that this morning. This is going to be a story. So if you'd allow me, I'd like to speak to you like a father. That's the way God's been using me since about 2000. And I'd like this to be our living room. Makes you feel more into the mood, take your shoes off. But I'm going to share some of my story, how I got here, why I'm standing here today instead of somewhere else where I'd built a life. And I'm going to share about the goodness of God in it. I almost called and requested these songs, and I didn't have to, because it doesn't matter what happens to us. God will never leave you. You know, He will be with you in it. And I'm going to share that. And I'm going to share how He's taken me out of a dark place and restored me, and He used the people here. I want to take the opportunity to thank everybody here. If you call Destiny Life home, you've been part of something that was created for me to come to and be restored when I had no place to go and my need was great. So I'm grateful today. Is that okay? If I get teary, don't worry about it. I've been going over all this stuff, and it's been a joy to do. I see it differently now. So I'm going to start by saying I was married for 40 years to a wonderful woman. She was smart. She was a Spirit-filled Christian. We got saved and Spirit-filled together in March of 1980 on a farm in Kentucky, all by ourselves. Church in every place, right? So, and then we just partnered up and we started doing it together. She was my greatest encourager and I was hers. I realized if she was growing in God, I'm going to have a better wife. So I'm doing everything to help her grow. She was gorgeous, am I right? She was perceptive, she was discerning. And I'm not embellishing this, she had her faults, but her strengths were big. And we had quite a ride. We had a real journey. We did everything together. So in November of 2006, she was a nurse practitioner, and she was a very good one. She had a history of colon cancer in her family, so she kept a check on that. She was real diligent with it. And in November 2006, she found blood in her stool. So she had a colonoscopy. She had a tumor, and it was cancer. It was in her colon. It was a small one, about the size of a pecan. And it's supposed to be a surgical cure. So they cut it out, put it together, zip-tied it, and she went home. And within a couple of months, she's gardening, planning to go back to work. We wanted, our youngest daughter and her family were in Guatemala. She wanted to fly down there. We went down there. She started having stomach pain. We went to a hospital there. She had an ultrasound. There was a mass there. And so we got an emergency flight back to the States, emergency surgery, took it out. It was a cyst. What had happened is the suture line had leaked, and the body formed a cyst around it to protect itself. But it had already leaked. So what happened was she got a massive abdominal infection, and it stayed with her the rest of her life. And through the course of 4 other major surgeries, the longest one was 18 hours, she was misdiagnosed. They thought it was cancer that was keeping her from getting well, and it wasn't. It was infection. So she ended up having some experimental surgeries, and in one of those, they found out that she didn't have cancer. They took a lot of stuff out of her, and she had 50 biopsies on the stuff they took out in the third surgery, and they were all clean. So she died cancer-free. She was a medical mistake. That's sad, isn't it? It's real sad. And that's all I need to say about that. In 2010, she asked me to stop work and take care of her. And we didn't plan on it lasting 10 years. Everything was supposed to work. You just take it a day at a time, right? Right? I mean, I didn't know. So I stopped work, and she trained me how to take care of her. And it got pretty intense. It got pretty intense. The last 5 years, she had to have something done every 3 hours, or she'd go south and be gone. Couldn't bring her back. So I was on this schedule every 3 hours with her for 5 years. But we started together. We did everything together. We finished together. And she'd have done it for me. Because we were in. We had an encounter with God before it was popular. It was a 3-day event on our farm. I had no question about God being real then. And so we started together and we finished together. I took care of her. She was given 3 months to live by 2008 by 24 different doctors. I wrote down their names. And we were honest with each other. So I'd go in and look at her and say, they took me to the side and told me. And I'd say, he says that you got 3 months. How's your heart say? And every time she'd look at me and say, nope, it's not my time. I said, okay, we'll start there. I mean, sometimes you believe bigger than what you're told, right? So I could look at it this way, that she was given 3 months to live and she lived 10 years. And this is what I want to share with you. I really want to share this. We were in. There's no place for us to go but God. From the very beginning. In the middle of it all, at the worst moment of it all, God was with us. It was like all the cultural clutter of jobs and money and all this stuff was just out there. And we're right here in this place, stripped bare, with nothing but God. Now, you may be going through something. You may know somebody it is. I am telling you, he never leaves you or forsakes you. And if you don't blame him and run from him and all those silly things, he will go through it with you. If it's your time, you'll go home. And guess what? That's okay. And if it's not your time, you're going to be staying here. And he'll put you back in purpose in his time. And I'm on the road of purpose again. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't care. I'm going to be led by the Spirit of God. Now, when she passed away, Jerry checked on us all the time. I don't even know what country he's coming from. I think he went to 2 or 3 of her surgeries. He ended up speaking at her funeral. And after she passed away, he came and got me and drove me around to Louisiana and all these places. I know he was checking on me. He's my band of brothers' brother. And so I'm sitting here in this house. I did a very wrong thing. I didn't take care of myself. I did the classic caretaker misdeed. I was so busy taking care of this emergency thing every day. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I got down to 130 pounds. I weigh 220 now, don't tell anybody. But I lost a lot of weight. Got weak, my fingernails were rubbery, my teeth were crumbling. And I'm standing here. And I really thought, my children thought, Jerry told me later, he thought I was going to go with her. And I thought I was. And I didn't. I mean, I remember standing up in the middle of the house and going, I'm going to live. And so I'm telling you, with all this stuff stripped off, just you, I felt like a little child in God's presence. So I hear Tom give his testimony about his son. Hey, Tom. That when he died, he says it this way. I've heard him say it several times. He said, I would give my life if that hadn't happened to Joshua. If he could live, I'd die. But I wouldn't take anything for what Gene and I have learned since then. And that's where I'm headed. So I'm just going to share my heart with you. Is that okay? We still in the living room? So I contacted Jerry after he contacted me, and I said, I got to go someplace, Jerry. I knew I had to go. Nobody could help me there. And I knew I needed time. I needed space. And so he came and talked to Glenn and the leaders here, set it up for me to move here. I sold my house. I left my family. I left my lifelong friends. And I bought an RV and I moved it behind the maintenance building. I pulled up here. I didn't know anybody but him. And he wasn't here. I learned to be still in the hospital. I learned to be comfortable with God in stillness. And I started to hear his voice there. Be still and know that I'm God. The still, small voice. And I began to see for me, now I'm telling you my story. Everybody has their own journey. But the still, small voice is where he leads. This is how he speaks to me. And it got real clear. There was no clutter. Go. Stay where you are. I got to recognize the small, intuitive promptings of the heart where the Holy Spirit lived. And that's why I'm here. It doesn't make any natural sense for me to be here. I don't have a job. I didn't come with a resume. And I didn't know anybody. But I believed in my heart I was supposed to come here. And it's been a divine appointment for me. And he still speaks that way to me. But I hear it clearer now. I wouldn't take anything for the clarity I have in the still small voice today. I done already? No, I'm good. So I get here. Jerry and Jonathan are out there at the RV, out behind where Juan's RV is now. And I could tell you so many stories. I could talk on this for days. I'm telling you, the church was in the hospital. Christians everywhere, and I've been a pastor since birth. That's all I do. I don't even have to think about it. Don't even have to try. So wherever they are, I'm doing a Psalm 23 on them. And they kept coming back. You know, we just loved them. We didn't think about dying. We thought about living. And that's the way you ought to live, isn't it? So the nurses would come in. We had a lady from Ivory Coast who was in a refugee camp with 3 children. Her oldest child was here. He arranged through Catholic missions to get them to come. She's our custodian. She's a spirit-filled Christian. She cleans her room every day at one hospital. So she comes in. We know her story. She knows us. In those situations, Christians find each other. You can't hide it. So she tells us her story. We tell her ours. She comes in 3 or 4 times a day, supposed to come one. I see her walking out in the hallway. And then when the surgery time comes, they take her out at 4 in the morning. We'd prepped all night, been up all night. Supposed to be at 5. I go to the waiting room. There she stands. She interceded through the whole surgery, walking the floor. We had 3 Indian nurses at another hospital from southern India. They went to the same church, immigrated here, going to church here. One was day shift, one was evening, one was night. So we come in, we do our Christian thing, find each other. And so she does her intake, and when she's finished, put your hand on her head, praise over her. There's a hospital, church in every place. Evening shift, same thing. Night shift, I had the lights off, she was sleeping. She opened the door, light came in through the door, and I'm sitting in the chair. I'm learning to be still. And she just walks over to the bed, puts her hand on her head, prays for her, and say nothing. Happened all the time. I'm telling you, God was with us. If you're going through something and you invite God in, you yield to him, you believe that he is, and he is inside you, he will be there. The minute you turn, whatever you're in, he's there. We found him there. Still there. So Jesus said, I don't know why we do this, but Jesus said in John 16:33, he said, in this world you shall have what? In this world you shall have what? Tribulation. Why do we expect not to? Get ready for it. If you live long enough, somebody you love is going to die. How are you going to go through that? You're going to go through that with God? You're going to let God bring you through it? Or are you going to blame him? I'm encouraging you here. Things will happen. Go through it with God. Is that okay? All right. That's basically the story. Now, how it left me. We have this up? The effects? Yeah, that's it. Good job. I like these guys. All right. So the effects that left me malnourished and emotionally spent and in shock. And God was with me. God was with me. I didn't have any place to go but God. So I know now, since I've been here, the Lord showed me some things, helped me study for it. And when you can see it, you can do something about it. So he took me to some places to see what was happening to me because I was in shock. Shock means you have witnessed something tragic and you're locked into that. You can't get out of it. It's like the young soldiers that go to war. They experience horrible things. They do horrible things, have horrible things done to them and their friends, and they can't get out of that. They come back home and they can't just eat pizza and watch the ball game. This keeps replaying in their heads. And it's called post-traumatic stress, after trauma, the effects of that. The Rocky Mountains are full of veterans with this. I know a couple of places where there's 300 of them. They can't reintegrate into life. I think I could be there if I hadn't had God in my life, if I hadn't believed in purpose, if I hadn't believed in restoration, if I hadn't believed in the love of God. Or the cities in our country now are inundated with homeless veterans. The effects of child abuse, stress. So I began to see what it was doing to me. I want to say this. For at least 5 years, I was so focused on death and life that my body and my brain actually clicked into that. It's called the survival response. It's called fight or flight syndrome. When you perceive a threat and it's real to you, you perceive it and then you experience it. The neurons of your brain wire together. The brain orders a chemical to be released, and it's called adrenaline, and it's called cortisol. Cortisol is an efficiency drug. It shuts down everything the body doesn't need to survive the next moment. It shuts down digestion. It shuts down your immune system. It's not a time to heal. It's time to get out of Dodge. And my body was surging with both of these. I read a story about two brothers. They were in a garage, had a car on blocks. Car fell. One brother underneath. Other guy goes over and picks up the car. That's adrenaline. And when it was over and everybody was okay, he's jumping around in the yard. There's so much adrenaline, he can't sit still. I did that for 5 years. I think that's why I got so skinny, honestly. So in that state, your brain goes up to a new level of brainwave patterns called gamma. And what gamma looks like in a sleep study is it's like it's either euphoria or it's survival. The brain just goes into another level. It's not time to learn. It's not time to share. It's not time to rest or sleep. It's you cannot interact with your environment. You can't talk and listen. All you can do is scream at the bear that's coming at you. All you can do is give commands. And I was stuck in that when she died. Nobody knew what to do with me. I was talking 1,000,000 miles an hour. I was moving. I was staying up all night. Didn't see it then. See it now. And you know what was really neat looking back on it? Only thing that's coming out of my mouth was scripture. Is that right? Jerry was there a couple of times, and he just sat there like this. And I remember this because I had adrenaline and I remember everything. And finally he stood up and said, "Are you writing any of this down?" I said, "No, I can't write it." So that's the position I was in. Now, God started having me read. I started reading some things I wasn't interested in. And I know now he was getting my mind broken back into interacting, to receiving and talking and listening. And it was a long process. And that's basically the way I showed up here. Tom used to say he'd give me so much time to talk, and that's not. Tom would drive me around. He'd come back there, and I'd be standing there. I was very weak. I was so weak, I had to hold on to the back of the chair to stand up during worship. And he'd pull up and says, "What are you doing?" He knew I wasn't doing nothing. And I said, "Nothing." He said, "You want to take a ride?" So he rode me out Claremore Lake, and I'm talking, and he's listening, over to Oulagan, all these neighborhoods, and we stop and see his friends, and you might like a house in this neighborhood. And we do all that. And when I would stop and look at him, almost every time, what he said was an impartation to me. Everybody say restoration. Now, I want to tell you the three most important things you can do. I don't believe there is restoration outside of God, outside of the cross. God showed me what he's restoring me from, but he also showed me what he's restoring me to. You know, I could wallow in medicine and groups and stuff, and that's fine, and never really get to anything. And the three things you've got to have, you're going to make it. You've got to have the Word of God in your heart. There is no plan B, and there is no excuses. And I've been asked this dozens of times in my life, well, how much do I have to read the Bible? I mean, you know, I do a devotional, I go to church on Sunday, and I've got an answer now. You read it till it comes out of your mouth. You read it till it works into your life and your values and character. I have pounded the Bible in my heart, Regina, I did for decades. And when I needed it, guess what? It was there. It is the tool the Holy Spirit uses to help you. No Bible, no tool. There's no plan B. The second thing you have to have is you have to have a relationship with the indwelling Holy Spirit. You got to know him in there. You got to hear his voice because he'll guide you out in little bitty things. A lot of little bitty things over time becomes a big thing. And he's very patient with us. He's patient with me, tender with me. But if you don't know him, now's the time. You got to learn to be still and hear his voice. My sheep hear my voice, right? Be one of them. I'm going to be one of them. And the third thing is, God sent me to the best Christian community. I didn't think it existed. I've been in several churches, started one. I always wanted that. Because you need people. You need people. You know, just like everybody here. It's like I'm walking over here. When I first get here that night, I'm feeling insecure because when you're getting ready to change, there's a feeling of uncertainty. You know, I'm not doing that, but I don't know what I am doing. And it feels uncertain. A lot of people run away then. That's where you got to trust, right? So I made a decision to trust back here. And God spoke to me that night. Said, I want you to get up tomorrow and immerse yourself in the people of this church. Like baptize myself in them. And I did, didn't I? I was here all the time. I remember Adam, when I went to his life group, he said, man, what all are you going to? I look up and there's Doug Van Meter everywhere. You know, if the Lord speaks to you, are you going to do it? Because it didn't make sense to me. My mind didn't get that. So I just did it. Now I understand why. He spoke to me and he said, in the night. For me, it's always in the night. I think it's because I'm stillest then. I want you to give in every offering and answer every altar call until I tell you different. I'm thinking about this and I'm thinking, you know, I'm telling him I want to be led. And it's like, well, we'll see. Give in every offering and answer every altar call until I tell you different. So what do you think I did? I did it. Do you remember me answering all the altar calls? I mean, here's a guy in an RV. Every altar call, here I come right up through here. I kind of focused up on Keith Manning. He got to where he was looking for me when I walked in. I answered so many altar calls, I ran out of stuff to ask for. So I just go up to him and say, I don't know what to tell you. I'm supposed to be here. Just pray your heart over me. And here it came. He met me every time right there. It flooded over me. Everybody say little things. Still small voice. Word in your heart. Right place with the right people. And there's safety in that too. Title of this message is Keep Coming Back No Matter What. Keep coming back no matter what. Never go away. Never run away. Let your heart find its way home to the things of God. Because I wanted to quit. There was times it was embarrassing. I had a competency in life back there that was stripped from me, and I was laid bare here. Just had to get over that. I've got some, I think I have a flyer supposed to in your bulletin. Could we go to the first PTSD slide, guys? Now, I want you to take this home because there's trauma everywhere. You probably have people in your life that have experienced trauma, family members, maybe you. If you live long enough, you're going to experience people that did have trauma. And this is what I studied when I came here. I had all of these, but the first one, I thought about it. I didn't avoid it. I learned you have to be honest with yourself. The first place to be honest is with yourself. Then you have to be honest with God. If you're not honest with yourself, you're not going to be honest with God. You're going to deny it. You're going to run away, whatever. And then you're honest with others. So I had to look at me and say, am I doing this? And I learned to self-reflect all the time. What am I feeling? What am I thinking? So I could see it. When you do self-reflection, certain areas of your brain click on, and it's getting ready to learn. Your brain loves it. It is a wonderful exercise. Be honest with yourself and look at it. I'm still dealing with 2 of these. This is how I know I'm not finished. I'm dealing with feelings of guilt and shame, and I'm dealing with sleep difficulty. I could take a nap right now. I got up at 3. Feelings of guilt and shame, I think, are why people go away. When the young soldiers come back, their questions are, why did I live and they die? And they just can't come to terms with that. And so I can remember this happening here 2 or 3 times. I had these feelings, overwhelming feelings of guilt and shame out of nowhere. And the Lord took me to this, and I began to see it. And so in the midst of it, I started looking at what I'm feeling and identify it. I started looking at the words I'm speaking to me to accommodate that. If you get up every day feeling insecure and you say, well, I'm insecure, you're accommodating that. And you're setting forth a destiny with your words to stay that way. So I'm doing this, and I see, these are the words I heard that was accommodating this. In my own head is, you let her down. You don't deserve to be happy. She died and you're alive. You let her down, and you don't deserve to be happy. When I saw it, I said, that is a lie. I could tell myself that's a lie. I was good to the last drop of blood. That I'm sure. So this is how I combated this. I said, I'm going to have a Be Good to Doug day. I'm going to have fun this day. I'm going to take myself out to lunch. I bought myself a good Christmas present this year. I am not going to obey that. It's not true. I just do things all the time now. Well, what are we going to do today, Doug? Let's just have some fun. I'm not going to get to all this anyway. Is that all right? I want to tell you some things I've been doing. The little things in my daily life. Finally got it. It's a lot of little things make a big one. And so I read something where dancing helps you. Now, don't tell nobody this, okay? Where dancing rewires your brain to joy. Just think about the children of Israel now. They dance all the time. We don't. So I turned my recreational vehicle into a rocking vehicle. I got playlists right here. I mean, if I see it and it's God, I got to do that. So I've been dancing around my RV for 1.5 years. It ain't pretty, but it's fun. I made a list of them. I'm I'm just going to cut to the conclusion. Is that all right? I've always loved giving. I mean, I get great joy out of it. When you give led by the Spirit, you see the effects of that on a life. I just get great joy out of that. I'm going to share one thing with you. Regina and I gave away a number of vehicles. They weren't new, they were in good shape, and they were paid for. One in particular was a lady in our church in Alabama. She was in her mid-30s. I'm talking about Joy now. She was in her mid-30s, lived with her mom and dad, didn't have a driver's license, never driven a car, never had a job, never had a boyfriend, real sweetheart. So one day I'm there, the ladies of the church have her in the parking lot teaching her how to drive. So I'm just watching this. Everybody say still small voice. If you're not going to obey, don't ask. So I'm looking at that. Regina walks up. We were talking about getting another car. And I said, what do you think about giving that woman that car? And we'd already done this a couple of times, so it wasn't a big shock. The first one's a shock. And so she said, I've been thinking that. I've been watching her. So they came in. We just went over to them and prayed for her and said, we're going to give you this car. It's yours. Next thing I know, she's in the parking lot driving. Different ladies every day. Next thing I know, she's got a job. Next thing I know, she's taking mom and dad on day trips. Next thing I know, she's coming in with a boyfriend. It's like from there, it just opened like this. I like that. I think God does. For God so loved that he gave, right? And as we so love, we do too, right? Oh, Lord, help me. The Lord began to speak to me about keeping it simple, still small voice. I'm keeping it as simple as a little kid. Keep it simple, childlike faith, childlikeness, have fun. So I'm looking for this all the time. I get up every day. And guys, I'm going to tell you, if you're resistant to God, you're just wrong. You're just wrong. You don't know what you're doing. You just don't know him. You need to read the Bible more till you do. Because when you know him, you're going to love him. And you're going to trust everything he does in your life. So I'm having fun. Friends back home would call me and say, Doug, what are you doing? They were keeping up with me, seeing how I was coming out of it. And I found myself saying this. I reflect on this week. I'm just going to be looking for peace for the rest of my life. I'm just going to be looking for a common joy of living. And I'm going to be looking for beauty. Didn't realize it, but I set a course for my future right there. I started traveling in the Rocky Mountains. I started taking pictures of sunsets. If you're going to be awake at night, why not take a picture of the sunrise? All right? So I just engaged in it. It was like a little bitty obedient step, and all of a sudden, here's the whole world of beauty. And now I look for it everywhere. And I want to share this. When you're doing that, you're not reliving that. When you're looking for peace in every little thing, I'm going to search every day. I get up still to this day for the last 2 years. This is what I do. God will lead you. I get up in the morning and I say, Father, what are we going to do today? What do I need to change today? I can't consciously remember ever being resistant to God after I got in. Didn't tell him no. If I felt it, I'm gone. If I thought it was God, I'm gone. So now, what are we going to do today? It's just common. And another one, What can I yield or surrender in my life to be closer to you today? Keeping it simple. Here it comes. If you're alive, he has purpose in your life. If you don't know it, you're not spending time in it. There's a war on for our attention. These things that, and there's nothing wrong with any of them, but I don't like having conversations like this. I don't like talking to somebody and they get bored with what you're saying and they're this. So I started looking at this, and the Lord spoke this to me in the night. I'm immersing myself in these people, and he says, look for Jesus in them. Look for Jesus in them. Listen long enough till you see Jesus in them. Joe isn't here, is he? Chris has got a new guy, Joe. He's a great guy, first guy in the DLB house. I spent 4 hours with him the other night, told me a story. He's got a story, put him there. But he started talking about Hebrew. He's got all these papers on Hebrew. And I can see that God, he said, look, this really means this. So he's hungry for the word. And I'm sorry. And so at the end of it, I'm looking at him, and I'm standing there and I'm looking at him, and I just saw Jesus in him. And I said, I see Jesus in you, Joe. And we just came unglued, and I hugged him. I mean, look for Jesus in people. Jesus died for people. You want to find him? Go there. Found that when I immersed myself in people. Now I'm going to hunt for Jesus in you. All the time. Do it every day. God has me reading things, and music's taking on new dimensions. I was just about to become these songs this morning. There were nights I couldn't sleep. I put worship music on all night. Instrumental worship music. And it means so much to me now. You know, when David played for Saul and his soul was soothed, it's true. Science shows the neurons of the brain. Okay, this is the way it works, okay? If I look at John, I have a thought. Everything starts with a thought. Your demise starts with a thought. Your answer starts with a thought. And it's your responsibility to choose well. I'm responsible for my mental and emotional health. I cannot look in my past and say, because of this happened, that's the way I am. Because God has a way out for me. So it starts with the thought. I look at John, I see John. Let's say John asked me to do something. And so I have a perception. And I say, well, I need to go talk to John and report. And let's just say, so I make a decision, I make a behavior, I walk over to him, and I get up there, and I hadn't seen him in a while. And John is kind of an emotional guy, and I am too. So he'll probably hug me first thing. Doug, where you been, man? I haven't seen you. And he'll hug me real big, and I'll hug him. And what happens right there is I have a perception, I have an experience, and then my neurons bind together and create an emotion to reinforce that experience. Every emotion you have is a chemical secreted by the brain to an experience. Didn't know that. So it'll probably be, some dopamine or something in the brain. I'll have a warm feeling about that. And the emotions are to enhance our memories. If I ask you to tell me your story, you're going to tell me something in your past where there's strong emotion attached to it. And it also is to enhance life. When I'm with someone I love, there's an emotion secreted by the brain. Emotions are after the experience. The experience is what matters. And I began to see, I have to choose where I'm going to put my attention. Where you put your attention, you put your life. I have to choose what things I'm going to put in my perception. And when I do that, I was immersing myself in the people of this church. When I do that, I'm perceiving them. I'm having relationships with them. I've been adopted 3 or 4 times by families. I thought you adopted children. When I do that, I have an experience with them. We have a warm Christian experience. And the brain secretes something to make me feel that. That's how we're wired. That's where restoration is. God is saying, go immerse yourself in the people of this church. Your perceptions will change. You choose it. Your experiences will change. Your emotions will change. And if you give it time and get enough of that, strong enough, the neurons on these things that are pumping out bad chemicals let go. They let go. And the feelings stop. That's what's happening to me. I have a memory of it, but I don't feel it no more. I realized what happened to me was not my responsibility. But what happens to me is I have to choose it. So I'm choosing wisely. With the help of godly counsel. Y'all say amen? I could talk all day, and I'll tell you what I really feel impressed to do. Just hearing a still small voice, you know. I want to have an altar call. When I was a pastor, a vocational pastor, people would talk to me in the office about things that were going on in their life, and I'd have an altar call and nobody came. And I felt like everybody was afraid, like, only time you can have an altar call is when something goes wrong. And that's just not true. I was answering every altar call and didn't have nothing to say. God met me every time. What happens here, there's a promise here. Wherever two or three are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst. He's already within. The way I see this, we all have a light. When we get together, it's a lot brighter. So there's a promise of an experience here. Everybody say experience. God designed you to experience life. He designed you to perceive well, me too, go out and experience these things. Addictions, much of the computer things and things are distractions. They numb us down. Nothing wrong with them as long as they don't have you. But we're designed to experience things with people. And if you do, if you will immerse yourself in the things of God as your time allows, you'll obey the small things. This is what I've learned, friends. I want to have an altar call. Never pass up a good altar call. Don't do it. If there's any inkling at all, or maybe you don't have an inkling, I want to tell you what we did at our church, and it just stopped all that. One day I came in, I said, we're going to have altar practice. I knew everybody. I loved them. They trusted me. I said, you guys are too hesitant to come down here. There don't have to be nothing wrong. This is another part of the building. So I said, just come down here and stand here for a minute and get comfortable. So if you call Destiny Life home, I'm going to ask you, we're going to have altar practice. So we'll just stand up and come down here. You don't have to have a need. Doesn't have to be anything wrong.